Okay, I'm going to try and keep us on schedule. So it is 3:45, so we're going to get ourselves started again. So I'd like to introduce Joe Michaels, who's the Senior Director of Global Product Management for Precision Solutions, a great long title. I love that, at CNH Industries, and he's going to be talking to us about the future of precision agriculture. Too much popcorn. Thank you, Joe.
And I want to thank everyone that's stuck it out here with us this afternoon on the second day of the conference. And I'm going to ask one more favor from you, that I am going to work real hard, Mike, to get through this so we have time for questions at the end. And you'll really help me out if you think of some really good questions for my presentation. So with that, can you hear me all right? Okay. All right. Well, very good. With that, again, Joe Michaels, and I work with CNH Industrial. And you might know CNH Industrial a little better by some of the brands that we put out there into the ag equipment market. The first one that you may have recognized is some blue tractors and yellow grain harvesters under the brand name of New Holland. And then another brand that we have out there in the agricultural equipment space is Case IH. It's the red tractors and the red combines. And quite incidentally, this year we're celebrating Case IH's 175th anniversary in business. So we've been in agriculture a long time, and we intend to be there a long time in the future. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about going forward. We are going to talk this afternoon about our precision agricultural business and just what data and the Internet of Things is doing for us to help go ahead and expand our precision farming business at CNH Industrial. So why is this important? I'm going to show you here about when I was born. I don't think you can see it too well, but about 1960. And I think if you look really close there, you can see that there were about 3 billion people on the face of the earth. I was growing up in a family of 6 on a small dairy farm in Wisconsin, and got to get involved in a lot of hunger hikes and worried about famine and the whole thing. A lot of things going on. In the last few years, we've surpassed what? 7 billion people on the face of the earth? It's a real thing. And not only are there more mouths to feed, but the people on the face of the earth are wanting better foodstuffs. So if you're in a developing country, going out and buying, and these developing countries are developing a middle class, right? They really are growing their economies. But the first thing you do with your improved income isn't necessarily to go out and buy a new BMW. What you're probably going to do is take care of your kids a little bit better. So maybe you're going to switch from a starch-based diet to a protein-based diet. And that takes more agriculture to develop those protein-based foods and improve the lifestyles in these developing economies. So not only more mouths to feed, but better food to feed those people also. This is really the challenge. And the challenge is that with a little bit of luck, if I live for another few years, I'll get to see 9 billion people. 3 times what the population of the face of the earth was when I was born. And how are we going to feed those people? We feel at CNH Industrial that the real opportunity here is to go into precision agriculture and to really optimize the plants out there on the farm. 10 billion people by 2050 is really what is the most projections show. I'm going to give you a little relevancy here. Our company in 175 years has concentrated on the mechanization of agriculture. That's how we've gone from feeding 3 billion people pretty well in 1961 to feeding 7 billion people much better in 2017. Yeah, there's still some issues, distribution of food, we can get into all that, but much better food and much better agriculture worldwide today than there was back then, and more than twice the amount of people. We've done it largely through mechanization. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, you see a tractor that was typical of 1961 when I was born. 50 horsepower, one guy out in the middle of the dust, he'd go out there, pull a 10-foot disc about 3 miles an hour, run over his ground 3 times and basically give up and throw the seed in and hope it grew. Today's state-of-the-art is in the lower center of my slide here. This is a 620 horsepower quad track. It's the flagship of our tractor lineup at CNH Industrial. It will pull a 60-foot disc at any depth you want, properly prepare a pass for planting in one pass, and it'll do that at 10 miles an hour all day long. And I will challenge you that that cab is a better living condition than most of our living rooms, literally. It's great for the people that are out there, and much better for all of us, and we've really done well in improving how we're going out there to market. Here's the problem. Bigger and faster only goes so far. And what we're doing is we are running up against the limits of just how big and how fast we can run with our mechanization. At some point, there's a limit of what vehicle, what tractor you can take down a public roadway. And in Western Europe, they've run face right into this. They are limited to 3-meter widths in transport down the roads. We're much more open than that, especially here in Texas, and we can deal with larger machines, but the abilities to make improvements to agricultural production through larger and faster machines is starting to wane. We're getting to the limits of that. The real opportunity we feel is in our precision farming group. For the last 20+ years, we've been working on precision farming with the ultimate goal of treating every plant out there individually and maximizing its potential. Try to give this some relevancy. Right now, in many cases, and historically, farmers talked about a whole field at a time. That, oh, I had that North 40 out there, or I planted it to one variety, or I put a certain amount of fertilizer on it, or I had the guy come and spray a certain pesticide to it. We want to take that down to the single plant. To give you some indication, a football field is, what guys, roughly 3/4 of an acre, I think I looked up on Google this morning, and it's going to have roughly 30,000 corn plants in it. If you go by a field of corn, every football field worth of area there is going to have about 30,000 plants. Precision farming, our goal is to get down to the individual plant level. And as this slide shows, the key word here is variability. To maximize that plant's capability, despite the variability in the soils and the weather and the other aspects out there that were described. I think, Doug, you mentioned that this is like having a factory without a roof the other day during your presentation, and it really is. There's a lot of variability out there, and we're trying to deal with that through precision agriculture. Just to keep going here, I'm going to go on to the 4 different pillars of precision agriculture as we see them. The first one you'll see there is planning. And unlike a lot of factories, most of North American agriculture has the ability to take a few months off in the wintertime in the non-cropping times of the year and do extensive planning. To look at how the year finished up, the previous year, look at the practices they put into place, the variability they experienced, and what the results were. And then together to go ahead and plan a battle plan, if you will, for the coming year. So planning, a lot of that data comes in that we've been collecting. They put it together. They use their desktop analysis tools to organize it and make decisions about how they're going to go to the field in the coming year. Then we go out and we start to really execute that plan through our planters. Our tractors are pulling tillage equipment and planters through the field at the right time, at the right place, at the right speeds, and we're implementing that plan in a precise way. Once the plant is in the ground, once the seed is in the ground, the plant comes up, we've got to care for that crop. And then we have sprayers and other implements that go out there and they apply fertilizers and pesticides as needed to maximize the potential of that field or those plants that we have data on and that we're working with out in that area of our farm. And then finally it comes to harvest. And harvest is where a lot of the data comes through, the results of our plan and how well we executed through the year, the results of the variability that we had to deal with, the harvest. And precision farming not only deals with measuring how much volume of crop we got, which is the best indicator of success, but in some cases we're starting to see the ability to look at the quality of the grain or the harvest coming in from the field. And we're also working with logistics to control how we go about moving that grain off of the field in an efficient manner so it has that maximum quality and maximum value. So those are the 4 pillars of precision farming. And I want to talk a little bit about data, and we are at an Internet of Things conference here, and the role that data has played. This picture that you can barely see up there is my grandfather, Bernard Michaels. And grandfather Bernard, or Barney, I guess they called him. I never did. I never had the opportunity to. But Grandpa Bernard had data, and he stored his data and he protected his data. His data was a small notebook and a pencil that, if you look very closely, he kept in the front pocket of that bib overalls. And I will challenge you that if you met any person, any farmer in that day and age, and you looked in his front pocket of his bib overalls, you probably would have seen a notebook and a pencil. And he would write in there, and I have copies of these notebooks today, when he planted a certain field, what he planted into it, and any other specific milestone that happened through the year on that crop. He also kept in there what happened with the dairy cows. When did they freshen? When did they dry off? And if you don't know those terms, it's not real important. You can Google it. But he had all his records in there. He kept them real close to himself, and he could interpret them. And I think that pitchfork in his hand had something to do with his security plan. But anyway, he had his data there. We are getting much better with the Internet of Things over the last 25 years in our precision farming business, and the increased amount of data that we can get better at data. And I've heard it around here the last couple days in Austin, and we've used it for the last couple years in our business. The data is becoming the currency. And the first few times I heard that, I thought, oh yeah, don't get dramatic. I mean, here's farm equipment, right? But the more you think about it, the currency really holds true, because number one, ownership is key. Who owns that data? Security is key. We've heard a lot about security here, and it seems like that's been a bit of an epiphany in this organization or in these groups, that security is really key. And then finally, in order to create value with that currency, we have to be able to easily move that currency and create value with it by sharing it. So I think the word currency really fits here for the data. And data-driven, we've been that way for some time in agriculture. The bottom line for us at CNH Industrial is that we are going to work to be the supplier of choice and the preference for the customers of our equipment out there to work with us to hold their data securely and to make it easy to move to create value out of it. I'm going to back up a little bit here on precision guidance to kind of tell you where we've been, or precision farming that is, and where we're going. I mentioned that we've been in this space for over 20 years. Believe it or not, we started out with yield monitors. If you want to improve, what's the first thing you have to do? We all know it, right? You got to measure. It was one of the first innovations out there. In the mid-90s, we brought those into the market with some partners in the industry. And one of the other things that we brought into the market at that time were guidance systems, GPS-based guidance systems. And we've had several different radiations and other advancements in our precision farming business, including how to control application onto the field, and then starting to get into telematics and moving that data to and from the field. We're really at that breaking point today about really letting the business really advance by getting better at and doing more movement of data to and from the field, and thus not only more data but better data, and moving it better to keep bringing value to that data. Just a side note here, autonomous cars have gotten a lot of play in recent years, recent months. You should know that over the course of the last 10 years, the majority of production agriculture tractors out there in the field, be it our brand or that green brand, I forget their name all the time, the majority of those production tractors out there in the field are supervised autonomy. Nobody's driving it through the field. It's going through the field, and we're reaching accuracies of 2 centimeters at speeds of 1 to 20 miles an hour to precisely control and place those products in the field at the timely manner, in a timely manner. Not only does that help optimize the yields and precision farming, but it also minimizes the fatigue of the operator. So it is one of the early innovations also out there. Okay? So here we are. Here's our view of the connected farm. The connected farm where we're at today, we're bringing telematics in and we're moving data. We're bringing value to that data from all different areas. And we're really going from, at the extreme, my grandfather's notebook to this Internet of Things. And I hate to use that term too much, but it really is what it's about, right? That we are going to start to treat those plants almost individually. And that's really where we're driving to with our precision farming solutions, and maximize their potential no matter what the variability that they're experiencing in that outdoor factory that we have with not a roof on it. Okay, so we have to go from instinct and intuition to fact base, and we have to get more and more resolution, and we have to get better about managing that data, securing it, analyzing it, and acting on it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that currency and who owns it. I've noticed that subject, Mike, I don't know, it's been kind of skimmed over a little bit here.
We haven't talked a lot about data. We've talked about data, but not about data ownership. You're correct.
Yeah, and it is a hot issue, and those of you in agriculture here in the crowd and elsewhere know that it is a hot issue, and if you know any farmers, you know why it is a hot issue. Fiercely independent, right? Especially North American farmers. And if you don't know a farmer, just think of the personas that you've experienced on the media, in TV and movies. Fierce independence has made them what they are and successful, and they are very committed about the ownership of their data. And we at CNH Industrial support that ownership of the data, that it does belong to the farmer, to the customer, the end user of our products out there. So ownership is very important, and that's why we want to make this statement. Mike?
Would you like to take a question on that?
Please, go ahead.
Let me ask you, because the issue with the data on that is not necessarily, it's kind of the same as the issue with data on autonomous vehicles, which is you say sole owner of their agronomic data.
Absolutely.
How about the data on the piece of equipment itself?
The machine.
This is where you get the lock-in, which is where I'm the only one who can, it's no different than a car, right? The dealer's the only guy who can service your car because they have the computation, skills, the codes, and everything else to plug in. Do you follow that same methodology with your large, expensive pieces of equipment that they buy?
Our specialized piece of equipment, yes, it is similar that, there is machine data that I'll talk about and agronomic data. Agronomic data is the big currency that I've been talking about. The machine data is a very hot issue, and the right to repair laws are very key right now in many of our key states that we market into. And you may have seen some of the blogging going on in the last week. Our position on that is being developed, as this is a very dynamic space. In essence, we support our dealers and our dealers' right to repair, and to keep that vehicle secure is our top priority. Not only from a security standpoint, but also from a regulatory standpoint, Mike. We feel that is a very serious priority that we have to keep forefront. And just where these developments are going to take us, I'm not prepared to comment on because I don't think we know yet. Certainly, our bottom line is that our dealers need to have a viable business, And their customers need to have equipment that they can count on to be secure and meet regulations in North America or wherever they're at. And we're going to work through those priorities. There'll be a lot of precedents out there. It is a hot issue, but you know, for 175 years we've supported the customer through our dealer network, and we're going to continue to do that in whatever shape it takes. There's going to be a careful balance there is the bottom line.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, 2 types of data. I'm going to keep going here and we'll finish up with some questions at the end. But 2 types of data. You mentioned the agronomic data, moving that telematically, going ahead and through APIs and other more integral interfaces through our portals. We're going to share that with selected partners of the producers. And a lot of these partners include things such as basic business functionality. In Western Europe, many of the countries allow for subsidies if you share data, agronomic data that is, with the regulatory agencies of the governments. So we support that. We support various other service providers, be it Joe's House of Fertilizer or all the way up to the Monsantos of the world. Other trusted service providers that customer, that farmer wants to share data with, we're going to facilitate the movement of that currency, that agronomic data, to provide value. And was asked to talk a little bit about interoperability, and a hot issue. I like to think that because of a 20-year history with precision farming, our industry is at least dealing with it. And you can see a number of different associations that we deal with to try to standardize the data going not only from the vehicle to the cloud and to the various service providers, but also from vehicle to vehicle. And if you think about it, even the tractor to the implement, and to deal with that data. So we belong and to support these different associations out there. Very dynamic space. About every 6 months we have to review this slide, and there are a lot of players, a lot of new players in this market, and we have to work with them to make sure that they have access to the data as the customer wants them to, but also we have to keep up with all the consolidations and the movements of these players and these trusted service providers of the farmers out there in the marketplace. And then we talk about machine data. Moves much in the same way as was mentioned by Mike, but it also has its uses out there, much of which can be internal for us to improve and offer an improved product to the customer out there. Also for our dealers to offer additional services to their customers, including maintenance, including proactive service, as well as performance enhancement advice that they can deliver telematically out there to the operator in the field. So machine data is a big part of it. It's a big part of the opportunity of continuing that progression of those machines out there, maximizing the potential of the plants and the yields to feed those 10 billion people. So where we're at today, we have our precision farming out there. It's fairly well matured with many of the machine actuation or automation functions. We're looking to improve that. We'll be able to improve that through additional automated operations that we're working on currently. And ultimately here, we've heard it several times today, is true autonomy. And true autonomy is the ultimate goal for us, for the main reason being that we feel that timeliness and consistency of those operations in that roofless factory that we call a farm field is key to maximizing the potential of those plants out there. And then again, if we maximize the potential of each plant by dealing with the variability out there, that's how we're going to feed 10 billion people. And we're going to have a lot of help with it too. Basically, we've identified 5 steps of autonomy. Next door, I was taking in a transportation session on municipalities, and they had steps to autonomy also. We're on our path down this. We're on our way down this path. We have worked with not only guidance, as I mentioned, over 20 years in the field, supervised autonomy, but also the fact that we have worked on full autonomy. And I'm going to run up here and kick off this quick 2-minute video and show you a concept vehicle that we initiated last year. Thanks, Doug. And the question again is just, yeah, if we could let it play. Oh, well. Anyway. Oh, sorry. No problem. The question was, how long before we can bring this to market? Really, you touched on it, Doug. You know, is society ready for this? And I think the automobile industry is going to help lead us through a lot of that and getting those regulations in place. They've already started a lot of that. But in addition to that, there's a number of regulations within our industry and our tractors that we'll be putting into place to make this possible. We're estimating somewhere, 2023 is a real common date that they put out there. I think a number of us have made predictions that it'll come quicker than we think. Again, this is about consistency and timeliness to maximize the potential of those crops and those genetics that are being developed and all the other technology that's coming into the agricultural space. Thanks. John?
So I thought it was interesting you referred to it as a tractor, an implement, or a vehicle, but not a robot or even a swarm robot, right?
Yeah, good point. You bring up the fact that there's two schools of thought, at least two schools of thought, on autonomy for agriculture. And, we've maximized the size and the speed of these vehicles, like I've mentioned, to maximize the potential of one qualified human being. We're down to, less than 0.5% of our population working on the farm today, feeding all of this 7 billion people. Well, we've maximized that person's productivity through larger, faster vehicles. That doesn't necessarily make sense for autonomy. In some cases, it does. We think in broadacre, this happened to be in Kentucky after they'd taken off the wheat and they were putting in soybeans. They needed those soybeans in the ground within hours after the wheat was taken off to maximize the timeliness of that crop. We think it does make some sense in areas, but there's also the school of thought for the swarm mentality, which is a lot of smaller machines working 24/7 to achieve some of the same results. The bottom line is this: there's no one solution for agriculture today, and there'll probably be many of them in the autonomous world also. And I'm going to be there to see them along with you guys. So. Any other questions before we finish up? I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we'll take one more. We'll do one more.
Yes, sir.
Have you modeled the positive economic impact for succession planning or evaluation, given the age reality that is at the farm gate now? Right? It's not always the case that the family farm, as we knew it, is kind of a memory. It's now our corporate entities with valuations so different than things coming out of Silicon Valley. So with your data,
Yeah, a good question. I think we got to be a little bit careful with a number of the different terms and assumptions that you made. You know, corporate farming. My grandfather was a corporation, right? In 1928. I mean, to some degree, he was a corporation. There are a lot of very strong family-owned farms out there that, in every sense of the word, are a corporate farm. That is what has happened in agriculture. And certainly what we're proposing, not only in our precision farming business, but in all of our business, takes into account the fact that the average age of a farmer out there today, and however you describe a farmer, continues to climb. I think it's over 58 years old at this point of a farm owner. And I think if you just took out the production farmers that account for 80% of the value coming off of farms, it'd even be higher. Regardless of what's driving the ability to perform operations on the farm in a timely and efficient manner, we feel these solutions are the best way to maximize the yields and the potential out there. To say that we've taken it in as far as succession, I would say that whatever's causing farm consolidation in this country, and there's multiple aspects to it, including succession, that will continue. That trend started in the 1890s. We feel that it will continue to trend. That farm consolidation has also been, you know, part of our business too. Farm equipment companies have consolidated, dealers have consolidated, the whole value chain is consolidated. We think that will continue. We have considered it, and we do feel that if we are going to feed that 9 billion, 10 billion people, we've got to deal with those realities. And we need to deal with it in a way that is socially and economically responsible and still gets everybody fed. And that's where we're headed. So thanks for that question, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, Joe. So we're going to be moving into our last one, so give us just a moment here to change over. Dan, do you want to come up and we'll get you squared away? I think that was very interesting. Good question. Actually, I have a question for you. So let's get you squared away.